sea forest that we've had together. But it's that time, everyone, where we say thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next time, but bye-bye.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. I'm very happy to be sitting with a beautiful pack of wild dogs. It's the Ottawa Sands pack and it's a stunning and hot day here. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari here this afternoon. Behind the camera we have Paul, and we are really excited to be able to be sitting here showing you incredible things. So this pack of wild dogs was here this morning. They have not moved through the heat of the day. And you can just see them. They're congregating in the shade around the base of this false marula tree on the termite mound. So there is still quite a nice strong breeze here this afternoon. Thank heaven, some built-in conditioner. Oh, sorry, not conditioner, air conditioner. In the heat, it's about 30 degrees Celsius at the moment. There was some beautiful cloud cover earlier and it has completely disappeared. So it is very hot. At the moment, the pack is still relaxing really nicely. But as it starts to cool off a little bit later, they are definitely going to start getting more active. So I counted 12 members in this pack earlier. I was very interested to see the different members of this pack. I know one of the males is from Ngala, and he came down here, so that's very exciting. But I'd love to hear your questions. I'd love to hear any comments that you have, so please do send them in. You can find us at #WildEarth on Twitter, at FC on YouTube, or if you're under the age of 18, you can also pop us an email on kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. You can also register on the WildEarth website, head over to the live safari page, and you can actually submit your questions there as well. So I think it's going to be an amazing drive this afternoon. We've got some very exciting plans, not just the wild dogs, but we're going to be looking for things like lions as well, and doing a bushwalk in our different locations. Linda Poling, I agree. It is also my favorite animal to start the week. It's a beautiful Monday when you have wild dogs. It's a beautiful day, any day, when you have wild dogs. So it's actually quite interesting that pretty much the only clear view that I have is these dogs right on the top of the termite mound. The rest must be around the back, so I'll have to go and have a look around there just now. But I'm just so excited to be here, and I'm sitting downwind, which, if you know me well, means I'm very happy because I can smell them. Alright, so I'm going to go have a look behind the termite mound and see what's happening there. But while I do that, let's have a look at what the weather's doing in our different locations.
So it seems like everything is lazy today because it is very warm. Even these baboons, which we've got here at the edge of Ndlovu Dam, are drinking and then generally just sitting in the shade. As, in fact, we will probably do most of the day because it is very hot. It's 33 degrees. I just saw the weather today. It's hot, hot, hot. A little bit of wind is coming. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Anderson. Behind the camera is BK, and this is Eco Training's Pridelands Conservancy, where we're here at Ndlovu Dam. We came here because there was Ndlovu elephants at the dam a moment ago. They've just moved on the other side of this dam wall. So our plan this afternoon is to try and see if we can follow those elephants, or at least see some signs of them feeding, mud wallowing, maybe watch if there's some mud on the branches and trees. It's a little bit windy, so we do have to be a little bit wary about what we're doing. But it'll be very good. There was also a buffalo herd that came here this morning. In fact, if you look there towards where that baboon is, you can see that the mud on the banks there has been disturbed. That's where the buffaloes and elephants have come down this morning to feed and drink around this waterhole. Churned up that mud. And I'm sure they'll come back here again this evening as the sun starts to set. So let's cross our fingers for that. I think there's a bit of a cold front coming tomorrow. The wind should get much, much worse, and the temperature, the weather should get much cooler. So these animals will have to drink as much as they can today. Whilst it's very, very hot, the temperature will build and rise, and then a big fall tomorrow. And then animals can rest a lot more tomorrow. So we're going to head our way over the wall over there to see if we can glimpse those elephants. In the meantime, we'll send you over to Amy at Ngala, who'd love to say hello.
Hello everyone and welcome to andBeyond Ngala. We are back at the waterhole that we were at this morning and just having a look to see what we can find. Some hippos there already. But hello, my name is Amy and behind the camera today we have Gat. And just enjoying being out here this afternoon. It is very warm and luckily there is a nice breeze though as well. And I wonder if you've spotted what we've spotted here this afternoon. It looks as though the lions that we had here this morning are still indeed around. They have decided to lie all together just behind that fallen over tree. And you can see the one is standing up, having a look off into the northeastern side of the dam, where there are actually some impala. They walked all the way from the water up the bank to just past the bush line there. I don't even think that they were aware the lions were there because they were hidden so well behind the tree stump. But now the one lion looks as though it's actually gotten up and sitting on top of the log. Yeah. And now it's moving off. I wonder if it's seriously considering hunting these impalas. It's definitely having a look. Just look at its posture. Head down, like shoulders down a little bit, ears flattened, standing very still. Those impala haven't alarm called yet, so it means that they haven't quite spotted the lion yet. The wind is also in their favor, the same wind like it was this morning coming from the impala towards the lions. All the lions have now lifted, most of the lions have lifted their heads there. See the white one just put his head down again. Now I hear some alarm calls from the impalas. So they have spotted that lion. Pauline, you want to know, I think the question was how lions communicate with one another when they want to start a hunt. And it's a good question. It's quite unbelievable, actually, when you do see it happen, the way communication takes place between them without them really having to say a word. And it's a lot to do with their movement, their behavior, the way they position their bodies, and the way they sort of start to move. And they can pick up from each other exactly what sort of that intention is. And when they know, there's this unspoken, unspoken communication that happens between them. It has a lot to do with body language. And they just know, which is incredible. One of the amazing things about animals, and especially when you do see lions hunting, the way that they're able to work together with knowing how to work as a team without actually having to use any words. Of course, they can't speak like we can, but still effective and can still be successful in that way. But you can see in that case that it wasn't a serious attempt to hunt that lioness. I think more than anything, just the natural instinct, the opportunity of a prey species walking not too far away from it, just was like, let me go and approach closer. But now it's just decided to sit there in the sun. Well, they're all actually in the sun, and I don't know if their thermostats are broken, but it is hot and they are lying in the sun. No worries about it at all. By this stage, usually in the day, you would see animals start to move into the shade. I think these impala they're actually not moving too much. I would have expected them to move a little bit further, but they're also still standing in the sun. Just looking at the lions from this sort of distance, you can see how the white one stands out so much compared to its tawny counterparts. So I think we may sit here for a little bit longer, otherwise we may take a bumble, just see if there's anything else around and then come back. But yeah, that's what we're going to do this afternoon.
What you are seeing right now is called a millipede, and millipedes are very active during the summertime when it's warm and moist from rainfall. But this millipede is still estivating, which is a fancy term for summer hibernation, warm weather hibernating. It has lowered its metabolism, it is hiding away underneath what was a rock. I've just moved the rock to see what was underneath it, and it's half buried amongst the very organic, rich soil that's there. And we will cover it up again after we leave, but it's just interesting to see where certain creatures hide. Now, we saw, this morning I saw a dead millipede, a much larger one that maybe didn't manage to find a way to a hiding spot like this. And it had desiccated, dried out in the sun and been eaten or consumed by something, at least part of it. But this millipede is hiding away underneath there. I don't want to disturb it and uncover it. It looks like it's a fairly small one, and so I don't want it to be exposed to the elements. It needs to stay there as long as it can in order to wait until the next good rains. Once it rains, this little shiny insect will come out of its hiding spot, and start to consume some of this dead and dry material that is all around it. They are detritivores, which means that they eat dead material. So all around these rocks where we are dead and dry material. So once this starts to get a little bit moist from rainfall, starts to decompose a little bit, this decomposer, this stitivore, will start to feed on that, and that's how it will get some of its nutrients. But not everything here is dead. It looks dead and dry, but the roots, the base of these grasses is alive. If I even dig in here, look at this. This has still got, you see that in there? So a little bit of rain, and this will come back. It'll start producing leaves, and it will become a vibrant plant community once again. Everything is just dormant over the cold and dry months of the winter. It's warm now, but still very dry. The rains come soon.
So I have still got some very lazy wild dogs, other than one who is squeaking and trying to get the rest of the pack to wake up and play. Given up very quickly. So the rest of this pack is behind the termite mound in the shade. As you can see from that first view that we had of the two at the top, we have got a puddle of wild dogs in the shade. You can see they are quite hot, breathing very quick, short breaths to cool down. So it's actually very interesting. We were told earlier on that somebody came out and checked on them at around lunchtime, and they had somehow managed to find a genet in the tree, but it was quite high up, and so they actually scared the genet, and the genet actually climbed all the way to the top and was stuck up at the top of the tree. And I've looked through every little crevice in this tree, and I can't seem to find a genet. So what I'm hoping happened is it managed to find its way back to safety while the wild dogs lost interest and went back to sleep, as we can see them now. But I don't see any bits of genet lying around, so I don't think that it had an unhappy ending for the genet. But it would have been a very interesting interaction to witness. You can imagine these 12 wild dogs, very excited, running around the base of the tree, jumping up, trying to grab the genet. There's more than enough space for the genet to climb up and away. I've never seen an interaction between a wild dog and a genet, so it would have been a first for me. We're getting some squeaks. So that chirping sound and those whines and squeaks are one of my favorite things about a wild dog. Very typical greeting for a wild dog. It's one of their most important social aspects, is that greeting. And just like that, it's over. Boy, yes, it is very strange to see wild dogs resting. If you're only used to seeing them in the mornings and the evenings, that's when they're most active. It's called crepuscular. And as opposed to being active during the day or during the night, they do mornings and evenings and a little bit of the night on both sides. So it is quite strange to see them sleeping if you're not used to it. But this is what wild dogs will do through the heat of the day and also through the middle sections of the night, unless they choose to hunt at night for whatever reason. But this is definitely quite sweet to watch as they're all lying on top of each other through the heat of the day. Bear in mind it's probably over 30 degrees Celsius at this point. And yet they're still lying on top of each other, it just shows how strong the social bonds are with wild dogs. So they've heard a bird in the background, and that briefly caught their attention. Shreya, some pandemonium from these wild dogs would be so brilliant later on. Definitely something that everybody, really hopes to see if they haven't. And no matter how many times you see it, it never gets old. Seeing wild dogs rushing around everywhere, playing, chattering away with each other, and hopefully at some point making some kills as well. It's just, you can't even compare it to anything else really. I've got a massive soft spot for wild dogs. There seems to be a lot of insect pandemonium happening at the moment. There's a lot of flies that have discovered we're here, and they've done the same with the wild dogs. You can see the tails and ears flicking. Alright, so while I sit here with my sleepy wild dogs resting during the heat of the day, I'm going to send you over to Amy, who has her own predators resting in the heat.
Well, we have stayed at this waterhole for a little bit longer. The one lioness that had sort of started to approach the impala has come back and laid down just next to the water there. The white lioness has put her paw up on the dead log. Oh, look at that stretch by the white male. This closest lioness looks like she was trying to catch a fly. Looks as though the tip of that lioness's tail may actually even be in the water. She's just rolling over onto her back. It always amazes me that even in the warmest of weather, that these lions, first of all, that they're in the sun, but then secondly, they're always touching when they're resting, whether it's a paw or a head or a tail, something must be touching one of the other lions, and they're very tactile, I've noticed, while being able to observe these animals over almost a daily basis, where you're able to spend time with them and learn their behavior. it doesn't look like these lions are showing any signs of moving whatsoever this afternoon. Just deciding to spend the day really next to the water, resting, enjoying the sun clearly. I wonder if that lioness is having a bit of a dream that she was moving her paw as if she was running. But it might also just be some flies that are bothering her. You can see how her ear, look at her ear, how it's flicking forward and back. Maybe some biting flies or something like that that's just bothering her a little bit. So, Serial, you want to know if the dam water is safe for human consumption. I would definitely not be having anything to drink from this dam. So no, I don't think it is safe for human consumption. If you think of the water that's in here, what it's exposed to, first of all, just the hippos that are in here that defecate regularly into the water. We've seen a kudu that was drowned or dead in the water. That's obviously decomposed in here. Just generally how much bacteria and sort of unsafe things for us to, as humans, that we just, it would make us very, very sick. So no, I would say this is not where you want to be coming to fill up your water bottle every day. But for the animals, they are different to us. They have different immune systems, different stomachs that can handle a lot more, that are a lot tougher than ours, and they are able to drink this water without any problems. There was a hippo that was coming up and down every now and again, but it's just gone under the water. Oh, there we go. Some nostrils just made an appearance. All right, well, I think we may leave this waterhole and these lions and start a bumble this afternoon and see if there's any signs of buffalo. I would like to maybe find some this afternoon. Otherwise, some zebra and giraffe are always a lovely thing to add to an afternoon bumble. But off you go to another exciting location here in South Africa.
As WildEarth has shown, a guide is critical to your enjoyment when on safari. Safari Guide of the Year is an annual event which creates awareness for these men and women who dedicate their lives to tourism and wildlife. WildEarth fully supports this initiative that gives more credit to a profession that drives our economy and flies South African flags higher than most. In the lead up to our live award ceremony, where the Safari Guide of the Year 2021 will be crowned, we are inviting all our viewers to join us for a special fireside chat. Open to everyone, this unique event invites some of the top guides in the country to Djuma on the 26th of September, straight after the Sunset Safari.
Civilized to just spend some black rhino tracks, a mother with a calf. The calf tracks are so small. They're somewhere here in this area. but it's too dense to walk this way. So we're gonna walk around where it's not so dense. Let's hope we get lucky.
And sometimes you often drag their feet forward and deposit the scent mark, which is that what they use to patrol their territory.
We managed to get a glimpse of the black rhino, but for safety reasons, of course, we held back and we walked a different way, but it was such a fantastic experience. We didn't just focus on the big things, because it's not all about the big things. We focused on army ants and lots of dung. Civilized did an incredible job, but it's up to the judges now.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
This elephant just finished a drink in a mud wallow. Now it's making its way awkwardly, very awkwardly, up over Ndlovu Dam wall. Let's see what direction it's going to take. Is it going to go straight over the wall, or is it going to walk along the wall? See their foot swinging like that? That is a thought process happening. What was it doing with its back leg, though? It's more of a stretch than anything else. Goodbye, Mr. Elephant. Using momentum to take itself down that hill the other side. Oh, that was awesome, brief, but very cool. I don't know if you guys can see me. We're just talking about how shade is a wonderful way to hide away from animals. Because when we're in the shade, it's very difficult for us to be seen, especially if we're moving still, or moving slowly, not making too many exaggerated gestures. But even though we weren't moving very much, that elephant was still very aware of us. At one stage, it was half the distance from what we just saw it. And the smallest movement I made stepping over a log caught its attention, and it put its head up and it gave a big, shake to say, hey, what's going on over there? And then it moved away and mud-wallowed a little bit, and then it decided to make its way over the wall. So they are very sensitive. They've got incredible hearing and a great sense of smell as well. Their eyesight's not great, especially if we're in the shade like here, but it knew it could hear and smell us. The wind is blowing quite strongly, so any swirling wind is going to send our scent straight towards that elephant. It's all quiet now, but being a very, very hot day, I suspect many animals are going to come to this waterhole, so we'll stay close by, and hopefully we see more interesting stuff. So while we wait and see what else might come down, let's show you what you could stand to win a prize here at Eco Training Pridelands.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an Eco Training Ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
What an incredible prize to win. An experience like that is unreal. Definitely something to look forward to. So I'm watching one of the Ottawa Sands pack that's just been rolling. Very interesting behavior. It actually vomited and then where it vomited rolled in the fresh vomit. And this is something that the cats definitely will not do. But the wild dogs in particular, there it's vomiting again. It seems like they enjoy the harsh smells that they can accumulate on their bodies. You can actually see the wet patch on its neck where it was rolling. And again, something wild dogs will do that cats won't. There we go, is eat it and then roll. So, wild dogs are renowned for not being as clean as the cats. It's part of what attributes to the wild dog smell, which can be quite harsh. But still interesting to watch. So this is actually the second individual of the pack that I have seen vomiting in the last 15 minutes. That's one of them. The other is actually back asleep. And I'm wondering why it is that they are actually vomiting so much. Could be multiple reasons. It could have been from eating too quickly, maybe eating something they found that was starting to go off, although their stomachs are incredibly strong. They should be able to handle even off meat. Just unusual to notice that two of the younger males are vomiting. The rest of the pack is not perturbed by this though. I was very interested to see the dynamics of this pack includes the two pungwe females, and that in itself is something that I haven't really seen happening before, when females leave pups behind at an old pack and then move over and join a new pack. It's quite unusual. So that's a very interesting dynamic happening here. It looks like this pack is really built up of quite a few different pack members that have split and come together. And even more interesting that it was the alpha and the beta females that left the pungwe pack and ended up here. It's definitely not so common. Pelican wild dogs do have dens, similar to hyenas, but only specifically in the denning season. So they'll only have that den, usually a termite mound, when they have pups. And that den site should also be changed fairly regularly while the pups are young, so that the smell doesn't accumulate. But when they're not actually denning with pups, so after about 2 to 3 months of the pups being around, they should start following the pack. The wild dogs will actually leave the den site and they'll keep going until they find the next den site in the next denning season, usually the following winter. And the reason for that is because wild dogs are not territorial. They don't stick to one specific area and one specific den site. They're nomadic. So they can move incredible distances. Their ranges can cover up to 400, 450 square kilometers that they would be moving in, around other packs of wild dogs and around all the other animals. So it wouldn't make sense for them to have a den year-round, because they would move away from that area. They'll move to follow food, they'll move to find more water, and so they'll only stick to that denning system when it's the denning season. That's usually from around May, June, July, through to maybe August. Hyenas at the moment actually also don't have any active dens. There's none here on Djuma at the moment. And so they're also not sticking to particular den sites. That being said, when hyenas sleep, they might still sleep in termite mounds or in old den sites, where the wild dogs will actually just keep moving and, like this, find any shady spot that they're comfortable with and sleep there as a pack. So the wild dog that you can see now on the bottom left is the one that's just vomited, and the one at top right, it's lying with its nose down, is the other one that was vomiting early, and they both seem to be young males, which is interesting. I mean, it could be completely coincidental. But I would love to know what's going on inside there. It's actually quite difficult if you look at that tangle of wild dogs together there. Trying to count them can be quite challenging if you're not concentrating with all the spot patterns and blotches blending into each other. If you're not concentrating, you could miscount. Shreya, pups would normally start traveling with the pack after about 2 to 3 months. I would lean more towards 3 months. They'll start following the pack around because that's when they're big enough to actually be able to travel the distances, further distances, and kind of keep up with the pack at a reasonable speed. Before that, they would still be too small, their legs would be too short, they'd tire too quickly to actually keep up with the pack with the big movements. So it's quite interesting to watch how it differs from predator to predator, but wild dog pups are incredible to watch. It's definitely one of my favorite things in the world. I was incredibly lucky while I was at Ngala to see quite a few active den sites through the years, and it's an experience like no other. You can see from the way these dogs are spread out and tangled together and all over the place. You can see why they're called painted dogs as their nickname. They used to actually be called painted wolves at one point. Then it went over to painted dogs. And it literally looks like somebody's dipped a paintbrush or 3 paintbrushes in black, white and gold and just had fun with the canvas and thrown paint at it. It's just so beautiful. Each one is so unique. So definitely not related to the wild dogs in front of you, but definitely related to myself and Mpo on the vehicle. I was asked yesterday if there's any animals that I'm scared of, any insects that I'm scared of, and I wasn't quite remembering any, but we've definitely been reminded today. I'm not scared of wasps or hornets in a normal situation, but when there is one climbing up your pants on the inside, then it definitely reminds you that there's still a little bit of fear there. So I think that's my new updated answer to if I'm scared of anything. I think it would be a wasp in my clothing. It's been an interesting afternoon so far. Definitely gets your heart rate up. And it's like the wasp knew what I was saying, because as I said that, it's just climbed up my pants again. So the temperature has dropped a little bit. I wouldn't say significantly. It's definitely not dropped by 5 or 6 degrees Celsius yet, but it has dropped a little bit. And so that's why we're seeing a little bit more movement here and there of kind of each dog at some point getting up and moving to a cooler spot. Alright, so while I appreciate these beautiful wild dogs sleeping, I'm going to catch up with you a little bit later.
Still following some elephants this afternoon. We saw one at the waterhole earlier, and we saw it move this way. Oh, I can see one. I can see one right now. Okay. If you look through that gap there, you can just see a dark shape moving. You might have to use your eyes, but if you look through there, just past that sort of brown stump, just beyond that brown stump there is an elephant. Yeah, it's very difficult to spot because it's amongst all the sticks. But there's the elephant. Well, I heard it a little earlier, crunching branches. Glad to see we found it. It's obviously not a great view at the moment. There it moves. Can you see it through there, BK? Yep. Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So that's one elephant. I don't know if that's the bull that we saw at the waterhole or if that's one member of the herd. But at least we're on the right track. So, of course, as you can see, it's quite thick in there, and the wind is blowing just a little bit. So we will have to be quite sneaky about how we try and follow these elephants and see where they go and what they do. It's moved off now. So we are not going into the drainage line. It's not a great place for us to be. We're using this road that runs parallel to the drainage line to see if we can skirt around and get a glimpse of them. They'll be feeding along this drainage line. It doesn't look it now, but down there's a lot more green vegetation. There's a lot more. I can hear something. I don't know if it's my imagination. It's probably just the voices in my head. So we're going to stay out of the drainage line. They're feeding along there because of the shade, because it's cooler. And we're going to walk along the edge of this drainage line and hope that maybe we can find a better view of these elephants. Where are they? Oh, what's that? Oh, that's... Oh, no, it's nothing. Thank goodness. All right. Let's go wish us luck.
Driving down one of our boundaries here on Ngala. Just checking if there are any signs of a buffalo herd that have crossed in or out. I like to sometimes drive the boundaries and just check, like I said, for tracks of anything really, whether it be buffalo or lion or sometimes even a leopard that have crossed in and out of the reserve. Picked up a lot from, I mean, this morning it was quite strong, but it's really starting to be quite gusty this afternoon. But it is slightly cooler. A little bit earlier it was quite a berg wind. So Victor, you want to know which animals I found the hardest to track? Ooh, I think hands down that would have to be a leopard. It's one of those animals that's very difficult to follow into the bush once it's off sort of a game path or a road where the tracks are nice and clear. And even then, to try and almost predict its movements and sort of have an idea of where it could go, they often don't do what you think they're going to do. I also think that, not that we ever really do, but hyena are pretty difficult to track as well. Just because when they're walking, they change their direction in a split second and sort of turn around and move back and forth, and they're quite common, I guess, to see, so we don't really bother tracking them, but I think they would be quite tricky to follow if you did want to. So if you imagine on a windy day how much it affects your hearing, I mean, already just driving here with the wind flowing over my ears, it's already affecting how much I can hear, and sort of the sounds around me are compromised. And you can imagine how animals like impala, giraffe, zebra, kudu with those big ears, how much that compromises their sense of hearing. And so because of that, I mean, and their sense of smell, you can imagine they can only really smell strongly from one direction. And because of those things, the animals tend to hide away a little bit more. They tend to go to some of the thicker areas with a lot more dense bush surrounding them, where they feel a little bit more secure. The wind is blocked a little bit and they can hear more clearly to what's happening around them. So generally, look, it's not definite by any means, but most of the time, if it is windy, we tend to see some fewer of the animals around in the bush. But we're going to carry on down this road and shortly cut off a little bit into this block and continue to search for any signs of buffalo.
Amy, I hope you are successful on your bumble. So I am still with the sleepy wild dogs, and I'm just thinking that one in the middle of that little puddle of wild dogs must be incredibly hot. It has got paws from 2 different wild dogs over its back and stomach. There's 4 different paws over that poor one's chest. It's probably going to get very, very hot just now, and it is wedged in there by 3 bodies. 3 very hot, heavily breathing bodies. Right, so we have got a little bit of activity. Somebody's woken. Nazreen, I haven't ever heard of a pack adopting a pup. Usually what happens is when a pup is abandoned, or when pups are abandoned, they normally end up dying of starvation, which is very sad to think about. But mostly, no, they would stick to raising their own pups. In fact, they're quite strict on it. So even if, for example, the alpha female has pups and the beta female has pups as well, it's actually more common for those pups from the beta female to either be killed or abandoned, and that's within their own pack. That's usually their own bloodline. So I don't think they would accept a random pup that has been abandoned. If, for example, like what happened with the Pungwe pack with the 2 females that came here, they were the alpha and the beta, and they actually left pups with the pack. There were only males left in that pack, so the males actually had to raise those pups. Then that's a different story, because the pack has still got the same pups that it had. They've just been abandoned by the mother, but there are still males or members in the pack that know those pups as the pups of that particular pack. That's a lot of P's in one sentence. But yes, that's kind of the way that it would work in terms of the dynamics with pups. Wild dogs can be very, very strict with puppies, and actually discipline is one of the very key points that wild dogs focus on. Every single dog will discipline the pups. From a very young age, they get disciplined. And that forms part of the pack mentality. They work so well together. They're so successful at hunting, specifically because they work in a pack, and the pack is so tight-knit. It's like they know what the other ones are thinking. They can communicate in ways that I think we can't even really comprehend. Incredibly well designed. Pinnakin, I think it depends on your definition of bad. So I've spent time with hyenas and with wild dogs. I think to me hyenas smell worse, not in the overall sense of a particular hyena, but particularly with things like a den site. Hyenas tend to smell worse to me than wild dogs do. That being said, you might find a hyena who has, climbed into the entrails of a kill, and then it will smell particularly bad. So I think it depends on your definition. I know a lot of people don't like the way that wild dogs smell. I love it. So I might be slightly biased in answering that question when I say that hyenas smell worse than wild dogs. That being said, the wild dog smell is a very particular wild dog smell. They don't often smell bad in terms of like a fishy smell or a dirty smell. It just smells like kind of a mixture of urine and wet dog, and it's a constant smell. They don't often smell different to that. Where hyenas, I've smelled a variety of different smells coming off of them, and that's simply because they're more dirty when they feed. They'll climb into a carcass, they'll cover themselves and roll themselves in the entrails, and when they're denning, they're not as strict as the wild dogs with moving a den when it gets too smelly. That's actually a really good question though. Thank you. So there have been some impalas that have been moving around right on the outskirts of the clearing where we are, called Impala Plains. And I don't know if they necessarily know that the wild dogs are here, but there are no impala in the open area. That's probably just because of the hot sun. There's not much shade. But I think what is going to happen is when the wild dogs do start getting active, because there is shade in the surrounding areas and there have been impalas and steenbuck moving through, they've got a fairly decent chance of catching something later on. And an even higher chance if they stay here sleeping and the wind stays favorable like it is now. If the impalas come up into this clearing to settle down for the night and they haven't seen that the wild dogs are here and they can't smell them because of the wind, that'll be even better. The dogs won't really have to move too far to hunt. Although it looks like they are too lazy to hunt, they get up and change so quickly. So that's actually one of the Pungwe females. That's the one that I mentioned this morning. You can constantly see her teeth. She was the alpha of the Pungwe pack. And she's got that injury kind of to her top lip that's caused it to scar up away from her teeth. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave these sleepy wild dogs to catch up on their afternoon snooze. I'm going to bumble off and see what else I can find, and I'll come and catch up with them a little bit later, hopefully when they're a little bit more ready to wake up from their day's rest.
We're in the center of the reserve. It's a much more open area, so a completely different experience. It's also in the afternoon, so just a little bit hot, shall we say. We're following some lion tracks, and then we found the scat of a lion cub. So we didn't see the lions, but we decided to leave the area. It was getting a bit too dense and a bit too thick. So we've come all the way down to the water hole to have a little break, and then we're going to keep walking and see what else we can find. And TJ himself actually reminded us at the start of the walk that when you're on the vehicle, it's all about observing. But when you're on a walk, it's all about immersing yourself in nature, being part of the ecosystem. And that's exactly what happened today.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So there are some impala here that we've been watching for a little bit, and they've sort of been moving. Oh, and there's looks like a Burchell starling just on top of the tree there. Oh, it's just flown down. And often you'll see birds like the Burchell starling, even fork-tailed drongos that you'll notice as we sort of watch different herds of animals. And they often follow things like impala, even zebra, elephants, giraffes as they walk through the veld. And that's because as they are walking, so the insects around them are disturbed and fly up from the grass. And it means an easy meal for the birds. You can just see how well camouflaged these impala actually are through, well, there's a few mapani trees here that they are among. Well, I think I'm gonna try and move slightly forward and see if we can get a better view of these impala. So as we are gonna try and get a better view of these impalas, you are gonna head off to Mike, who is on a bushwalk in Pridelands.
Sorry, we're just repositioning because we've just seen something really cool. We had elephants, but this is way cooler. There's a rock monitor that's just walking in the grass right in front of us. It has no idea that we are here. We're watching these elephants, and this thing was making noise, and we wondered, is there an elephant approaching us? Because it was making loads of noise. But not. It's looking for rodents. It's looking for eggs. It's looking for anything that it can find. And although their eyesight is not great, as long as we stay still, they won't see us. Look what it's doing. See, it turned its head like that to look down at the ground to see what is this thing. What an amazing reptile. This is probably about, I don't know, just under a meter long. It's quite a large rock monitor lizard. Look what it's doing with its tongue. Do you see the tongue flicking out like that? The tongue flicking out is how it smells what's around. So we were standing down there a moment ago. I wonder if it will smell us. I wonder if it will get a fright. If it all of a sudden smells human scent. You can actually get to see our silhouette in a moment, because it's going to walk right past our silhouettes. Wow, that's so cool. That is so awesome. Look, it's going to go into this little grass thicket where there could be rodents, there could be anything living in there. It will flush them out. They eat snakes as well. They eat basically anything that they can find, insects. Wow, that was so cool. Now we've got an insect coming to say hi to us. That was so awesome. But it's gone in there now. It might come out in a moment. But now you can also see the elephants in the background that we were looking at. It looks like at least 2 adults, maybe 3, with at least 3 youngsters. But now we can just see the one moving off into the distance. Wow. It's very unusual on a bushwalk that we have all these things happening to us in one spot. That was crazy. Next the wild dogs will turn up. That would be amazing. The elephants were just at Ndlovu Dam. I'm sure they're being followed by that young bull that we had a little bit earlier at the dam. So we're on a bit of a termite mound at the moment to get a bit higher, so we've got a better view and also a better signal. And from here it gives us a great opportunity to see the movement of the veld around us. Yeah, Patricia, that was awesome. That rock monitor, although it's disappeared now, was so unusual to see one in the... There it is. Look by that log there. It was just digging underneath that log. It just got the tail limited. It was like putting its head underneath that log. Oh, it's just gone missing again, but it is searching for anything that it can find. Oh, there's the rest. The elephants are on the next termite mound over there. So where those elephants are going now is exactly where I wanted to go a little earlier, because I thought they would walk straight over there. But now I see that they would have come very close to where we were. Perhaps a little bit too close. This is why I love bushwalk, and this is why I especially love the time leading up to summer when the first rains come. Everything is starting to come alive. Elephants are starting to come more frequently to water because it's hot. The monitors and the lizards and snakes are starting to get active because it's warming up. They are looking for food to sustain themselves now that it's getting so dry. We can hear branches cracking off to our left. I think more elephants are around somewhere. Oh, there comes the monitor. Coming around. Look what it's doing. Look what it's doing. It's trying to get underneath that log there. Look what it's doing. See what it's doing with its tongue. I know Tessa's got some cool stuff, but we just want to make the most of this moment because this is really awesome. Very rarely get to witness this. Oh, he's searched that log all the way around and has obviously realized nothing there. How fantastic. Well, we will send you over to Tessa now that the monitor has decided to go into the thick bushes again to see what sleepyheads she's got.
Welcome back. I did not have to go very far to catch up with the Talamati 8, or those 8 members of the Talamati Pride that have been moving around on their own. And there is a bird that has caught their attention, flying up above them. So much like the wild dogs, these lions are very flat. They're very hot and sleepy and breathing very heavily to stay cool in this heat. So that front one is probably the only of these lions that still looks like it's had a meal. Not because of the belly, they've all got a decently sized belly, but you can see the reddish color on the forearms and on the neck, as though it didn't have a proper bath after a meal. There you can see the red as it hit the sunlight. Right, you can see everyone is looking quite lazy, trying to find the best angle to have the sun off of them and the wind blowing over the areas that they're getting very hot, the areas that they're sweating. And it definitely does not look like they're going to be doing much anytime soon. And who can blame them on a hot day like today? Very similarly to the wild dogs, we've got paws all over each other, bodies right next to each other, even with the heat. And it just shows any animals that move in a group, especially the predators, are so closely bonded. Even on a hot day, you're touching each other. So it's actually quite nice for me to see them again after all the drama that happened last week. To see they're all healthy, they're all looking fine. They're actually slowly moving, it seems, back to the area where all of the drama happened with the Mbali male. And actually from that exact spot, we're only about 1.5 kilometers. We're really not far from where all the drama happened. And they've come kind of from southwest off the western boundary of Djuma, and they're actually moving diagonally across. And it looks like they might end up back in Buffelshoek. So it's definitely just the flies that are the biggest worry for them at the moment. You can see all the tails flicking, ears moving as well to try and flick the flies off. I think that one might have got a fly up its nostril. Alright, so I'm definitely going to spend a little bit more time with them. I found us a nice little spot of shade. And I'm just going to see what happens as the day goes on. Hopefully they'll start moving a little bit later. We're not too far from the wild dogs, so maybe they might find each other somewhere later on.
Still on bushwalk. Oh, there it is. Maybe you can see it from here. Sorry, I just keep... Is it behind the tree? There's a monitor lizard that I would love to show you all, but it's just in the wrong place. Here it comes, here it comes. Yeah, there it goes. That is so cool. It's been moving around in the undergrowth close by to us, trying to find things. It's moving slowly, saving its energy, searching for lizards, eggs, birds, mice, whatever it can find. But it's moved off now. What we were originally showing you was some elephants, which is so cool. These elephants have moved all the way from the dam. They've come here, and we're on bushwalk, and we were hoping to maybe find tracks and signs of them. Didn't think we'd actually find the elephants, but there they are. And they are feeding on the only green bush on that whole area. And that green bush is not very palatable as far as I'm aware. It looks like a currant resin tree. It's not the tastiest of trees that they could possibly be. But, you know, when you're desperate, you'll take what you can get. It's got a very... That tree itself, the green tree next to that elephant, the one that it's eating, is known for having very, very strong, sticky resin, which can be used for a variety of different purposes. Look what it's doing, reaching up. Probably going to grab a branch and break. just breaking branches off. Shame. This poor tree is not going to be doing too well after this elephant's finished with it. But it's well known for having a very sticky latex, which is this white resin. In fact, on this particular tree, the resin comes out slightly bluish, which is interesting. And it's incredibly sticky, and it can be used for all sorts of applications, such as wood glue. But right now, that elephant's using it to sate its hunger. Is that a thing I can say? To satisfy itself? Yeah, sure, why not? Nothing better than spending an afternoon with elephants on foot. Nothing better at all. I hope you're all enjoying it.
As we were driving, you have found some zebra. 3 of them to be exact. Just all huddled together in a little bit of shade that they could find. Just have a look at the one there with its head resting on the one in front of its neck. Oh, and now the other one is putting its chin on the other one's back. Oh wow, look at that. Oh, just have a look at the zebra on the left's right rump. Just below its tail, you can see it looks like a little bit of a clump of meat out of there. So, in South Africa, we have two species of zebra. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name there. I think it might have been... No, I'm not sure if you can go again with the name. But the species that we get are plain zebra, which are the ones that you have in front of us, or the Burchell zebra. And if you have a look at this one, it's got a bit of a Eggy. Okay. Good to hear from you, Eggy. They are starting to move off, but what's distinctive about the plain zebra or the Burchell zebra is you have a look there, there's the main stripe that's going over the rump, and then in between there's sort of a shadow stripe. And that's what distinguishes it from the other species, which is the mountain zebra. And there's 2 subspecies of those. So there's the Cape Mountain zebra and the Hartman's mountain zebra. And they have solid stripes with no shadow in between. And a pink nose, which is a little bit of pink coloration above the nose in the front. So those are the 2 species that we get. But here in the Lowveld, in the Kruger National Park area of South Africa, we get the plains or Burchell zebra, which are the ones you're looking at now. You can just see the one was scratching its head against the back of the other one. But they do seem to be moving further and further off into the thickets now. So I think what we are going to do is continue down the road and see what else we can find this afternoon. Alright, well, as I said, we're going to carry on down the road, still looking for any signs of buffalo this afternoon. But you're going to head off to Tessa, who's got predators who like to eat zebras.
Yes, I certainly do have some predators that like to eat zebras and buffalo. And we have had a little bit of movement. There was a hooded vulture that flew over and it caught everybody's attention, and so now we've split up a little bit. And this is one of the bigger sub-adult males that's sitting just in front of my vehicle. And he's being bothered by the flies like you can't believe. You can see him trying to catch them there. So I definitely think there might be a horsefly or something that's biting him close to the base of his tail. Because he keeps biting that one particular spot and then flopping over dramatically. Perfectly behind a guari branch. Let me see if I can move it. Oh, sorry, boy. I don't know if I'll be able to move this branch. It's actually on my vehicle. Demo, if you come across a lion on foot, the best thing to do is stop where you are and obviously assess the situation. So you want to make sure that you're not too close. You want to check the wind. You want to make sure that you've got enough cover around you. The most important thing initially is to stand still and just take note of whether or not they've noticed you, anything like that. Because if a lion's noticed you, it's very different to if it hasn't. If it hasn't noticed you, you can just back away slowly, find the nearest cover, and then you can either watch from there if you're there to observe dangerous game, or you can move out of the area safely. If they have noticed you, it is a little bit more complicated. You don't want to turn your back on them at any point. But ideally then the best thing to do is just kind of judge their reactions. So if they're looking like they're not really too worried, then you can slowly back away and find yourself some cover and move off from there. If they are looking slightly more aggressive or alert, anything like that, then it would be a little bit different. You would then stand your ground until the situation calms down and you can start moving out of the area. The one thing you don't want to do is run away. That female is also preoccupied with catching flies. She's also one of the sub-adults of the Pride. You can see she's quite small compared to the others. Must be very frustrating to be out here with no real escape from pests like insects. Especially flies, they're going to be so attracted to anything still stuck on the coat, so dried blood or anything like that is an attractive point for a fly. Open wounds, anything that's scabbing. But in particular as well, flies are looking for moisture. And so a fly would land anywhere around the mouth, the eyes, the nose, even in the ears, anywhere that there's a little bit of moisture for them. So that's why you'll see the lions flicking their ears, because the flies are trying to get in there. So it must be quite frustrating when all you can do to chase them is move, swat your face, and flick your ears. She has started her nice afternoon grooming session, and that's very typical for a lion as it's woken up. Start grooming particularly the paws, then you use the paws to groom the face, and then they might groom each other. So that particular lioness can actually still see the vulture. That's why she keeps looking up. It's actually landed in the tree directly where she's looking now. There's a very tall dead knobthorn tree that she's noticed a hooded vulture sitting in. And she keeps going back to watch it. Right, that noise you can hear is just me putting that branch back. She has got incredibly striking eyes. I actually noticed earlier, compared to some of the other lionesses in the Pride, she seems to have very distinct kind of skin around her eyes. The black part around her eyes, which is a little bit of the eyelid, seems to be quite a bit thicker on her than some of the other lionesses, so it makes her eyes look even more beautiful than the average lioness. Nazreen, as sub-adults, they would be classified as adults closer to 2.5 years old. So as a sub-adult, you'd probably start participating in hunting anywhere from about 1 year old. You're starting to kind of follow on the hunts and watch what the other lions do. But from about 1.5 years, they should definitely be part of most of the hunts. That being said, they might only be fully capable of hunting something completely on their own from about 1.5 years onwards. Before that, though, they definitely will get involved. They'll come and watch. They'll attempt to stalk things. And they'll participate in the hunts. I've seen many a hunt foiled by sub-adult lions that give the position away way too quickly or very clumsily. I once watched the Birmingham young male get up in the middle of a hunt. The lionesses were doing incredibly well, and he must have lost interest or got distracted, and he stood up in the middle of this open area and then just flopped down onto his side. And he gave away the position quite obviously. So it definitely takes a lot of practice before a lion will be able to hunt on its own. Beautiful big yawn. Alright, so I'm going to sit here for a little bit longer and just see if these three plus the young male end up moving over towards the rest of the Pride in the shade of the next quarry tree.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the Wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
We had a very exciting start to our morning this morning. Today, it's our guided sunrise safari with Mike, and we started by looking at the moon through a telescope, which was incredible. It's been a very different drive from all the other ones, very interactive.
European gland is something the hoopoes have in common.
Hi. This morning's drive with Mike was thoroughly enjoyable. He really engaged us, but we also did some birding, and I managed to add a few new birds onto my list. Overall, every single experience with all the competitors has been really incredible, but it's up to the judges now.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is the call of desperation with a cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops. Oh.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So we left that elephant and the monitor, and we came back to the waterhole. And we just actually come down to the water's edge itself to have a look at this amazing patterns that have been made here. Whilst there's no animals here, you can look at it. And these are made because this is clay. This is silt, what we call silt. It's very fine particles of dirt that have washed through the river's action over here and been deposited. And they absorb so much water. And they're so sticky and muddy that when it starts to dry and the water evaporates, all those places where water was soaked in just starts to disappear, and the clay binds to each other. And of course the water is no longer there, so there's not enough space, or there's too much space, so then it cracks like this. And all these gaps would have been filled with water before. But it's amazing now, it becomes so crumbly. Remember a couple years ago, well, that one didn't crumble, this one will crumble. Look at that, just crumbles. A couple of years ago, there was none of this clay silt here. It was here, but not so much. It was actually just a fine dust. But because of the amount of rain we had last year, and it's only just drying up, in fact, it's still very wet. If I stick my pointer down in here, you'll see, I'll bring it out. It's covered in thick black mud. So that's why it's not turning to dust. In fact, let's see how deep this goes. If I put my stick there, oh my goodness, that's unbelievable. I'm actually afraid of breaking my stick, but it's... Oh! So the silt is at least that much deeper underneath our feet, and that much of it is actually in the mud. That's crazy. That's a lot. That's a lot of mud that's underneath us. So that's how deep we should be right now. We should be standing, if it was the sand, and that didn't even get to the bottom. So let's put it down here. Let's see. So this much beneath where we are is how much silt is deposited. So there's probably about a meter of silt that's deposited here. That's crazy. It's amazing how powerful nature is to bring all this soil, and this is good quality soil that's been deposited here. Maybe we'll remove it and put it back somewhere else, but while we think about how to do that, we'll send you over to Amy.
Well, we are still bumbling here in Ngala. We've left sort of the eastern area that we were in by that waterhole with the lions and made our way down through the eastern part. And now we're going more central to slowly winding our way down and eventually going to end up at the river. As the afternoon wears on, and already it's starting to cool down a little bit. The animals may start to move. head down to the river, maybe some elephants drinking. But also it's a lot thicker around the river, and like I was saying with the wind today and how some of these animals tend to gather and stick to some of the thicker bush, it's not a bad idea for us to head down that way and check along the river where it is a bit thicker and see if we can find anything.
Alright, so we are still with our very frustrated at flies lioness. I believe there have been some technical difficulties. I apologize for that. Luckily, the lions are still here. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon other than to the next patch of shade just now. So it's actually quite interesting. There's a lion there just underneath the quarry tree. And then the young male that was just in front of my vehicle just now has moved into the sun again. Which is not what I expected. I thought he'd go and join the others in the shade.
Yeah, I'm living this much.
He's definitely still got something biting him at the base of his tail. He keeps looking back there and nipping at it. You actually wouldn't have said, looking at those two lionesses side by side, that they might be from the same pride of lions, because they do actually look very different. The one on the left is much darker with a much broader face. The one on the right is incredibly light in color, and she's got almost like a pointy-ish face when you look at her when she's up. Even the eye color is different. It's beautiful to see different characteristics between them. I'm sure the lions are very grateful because the wind has picked up quite a lot since earlier. So that means that they can be a little bit more active and not get quite as hot today. I'm also hoping that means they might get up and start moving a little sooner rather than later. Especially with the wild dogs so close. That lioness with her head up really does have very striking eyes with the dark eyeliner and lighter patches. Pearl, that is a very big question. Climate change is something that is happening constantly at the moment, and it will affect them in, at the moment, mostly some of the smaller ways that you wouldn't really think of. So things like more insects being around at different times of the year because the temperature is off by just a few degrees Celsius higher and lower every single day. So slightly different weather patterns would change the movements of insects. It'll increase the length of their breeding season as well. So that means there's going to be a lot more insects and things around for these lions to deal with. It'll also affect them in ways that are a lot more obvious, like water and rainfall. If we're experiencing a lot more droughts at the moment, it means they're going to have to move a lot further to get reliable water sources. And that would affect their territorial dynamics, because you might find that within their territory all of the water dries up and the rain, because of climate change, isn't coming as early as it should, or it might come earlier. And so you can imagine that water availability would mean they might have a much higher chance of bumping into other lion prides in the search specifically for water. That water is also going to affect all of the prey species, because they need the water as well. And so if they start moving out of the territory because there's not enough water, because droughts have been caused when there's not enough rainfall, and the rainfall comes later and later every year as opposed to in the early summer, you can imagine how it's a bit of a knock-on effect, because they'll have to follow the water, they'll have to follow the food, they'll still be waiting for the rain. If it comes a month or two later, that can be quite a problem. And so that's quite a difficult adjustment to make, because you know it's going to affect the size of the territory, the movements within the territory, and the overlapping of territories of different prides. It will also affect them in the winter, because we're now getting a lot colder in the winter. Our weather's becoming a little bit more unpredictable as well. And the winter time is often when they have small cubs, because you want the cubs to be kind of born mid to late winter, so that by the time they're eating a lot of red meat, there are a lot of different food sources around with all the young herbivores that have been born. So with incredibly cold temperatures, that would also affect possibly the success of a litter. For example, if mom has to leave to go and hunt, if she's still separated from the pride and she leaves cubs for too long and it's very cold, the cubs might be affected by that cold temperature. I have even heard of things like leopard cubs dying from the cold if their mum is not around. So it could definitely affect a lot of things. It's a very open-ended question, and you can pretty much go in any direction with it, because it affects everything from, you know, the grasses and the plants right up to frog species, the herbivores, you know, insects, all of the big predators, rainfall, weather predictability even. So it's quite a problem. Luckily, animals are very adaptable, so they are changing as it changes. Luckily, it's not changed overnight, it's gradual, but it is still quite an adjustment. So it would take quite a bit of getting used to. You'll find, though, that as it's happening over time, the lions that are better adapted would also then be better adapted for climate change over time. Those would be the ones that have a higher chance of surviving and reproducing. And so the lions will adapt as the climate change is happening. That's an excellent question. Thank you. We have actually been joined by a game viewer or a game drive with some guests on it, also enjoying the magic of the lions this afternoon. And he looks particularly good in that light. That golden light is really starting to set in now as the sun's moving more towards the horizon. Alright, so I'm going to give it a few more minutes and see if he maybe gets up to move into the shade. It'll be very interesting to see how these lions move for the rest of the afternoon.
We are still bumbling here on Ngala, heading down, like I mentioned earlier, towards the river. Very quiet afternoon, other than those lions that we saw right at the beginning of drive. But we're keeping our eyes open and looking around for anything else that there is to see. But it's not too far from the river now, and I'm sure we may be able to find something there to have a look at this afternoon. But it's nearing the time of my favorite in the day, where the sun sort of is losing its burn a bit. And very soon, everything's going to be turning that golden color that we all love so much. It's always important as we're driving to make sure after such a hot day that we're checking under the bushes in the shade. Make sure we don't miss anything that may be lying there.
We have still got the beautiful young male sitting in the sun, and I'm very surprised that he hasn't moved yet, but we will see what happens. It is cooling down quite a lot, but I'm also in the shade, so I'm feeling it a lot more than he is, I'm sure. So I think this male in particular is going to be incredibly big when he's when he's older. His mane is already quite big. It's extending all the way down from his ears, his chin. The mohawk on the top isn't so big yet, but it's already going all the way down his chest, and just his body size. I'm amazed at how big he is for a young lion. In comparison to the sub-adult females in this pride, he almost looks like he's a whole third bigger than them, almost a half bigger than them, I'd say. Definitely got a little bit more activity with the lions kind of starting to sit with their heads up now. I just love it. You can actually see why when we're driving, slowly looking for lions, but one of the first things you often see is that tail flicking movement, just a black fluffy tuft of tail coming out of the grass and flicking. You can definitely see why, especially in the summer, that would be a good thing to look for. A floating tail without a line if it's buried in the grass. The lions would choose their boundaries of their territory based on quite a few different things. The one would be movements of prey species. So they would definitely have to have a territory big enough that covers enough areas for water and prey availability. But the other thing, which is a massive factor, especially somewhere like the Kruger Park, where there is such a high density of lions, that difference would come from the territories of other lions as well. So they would need to find a balance between large enough for food and water, but not encroaching on other territories. So you'll find the territories border with each other, they sometimes overlap. And the males, for example, will move between different prides, so their territory will overlap over maybe 3, 4, 5, even 6 sometimes, female territories. But you need to find that balance between the two, because especially for lionesses, their territory size is also going to mean the survival of their cubs. And that's a lioness's most important job in nature, is survival, but making sure that your cubs make it through. So they would need to make sure that they've got enough food and water, but also that they're not pushing into other lions' territories. So it can be incredibly hard because of that for young males in particular, like the sub-adults in this pride, to find a space that is not already occupied by big males. It's the most dangerous time for a young male. You know, hardly any lion cubs as is survive to 2 years old. They say it's 1 in 5 that will survive to 2 years old. And then imagine you get to that age, and as a young male you get kicked out of the pride, you get pushed out by the dominant males because you're starting to show some sexual maturity. And then once you get kicked out, you've now got to find a space where you're not pushing big male lions that are dominant in that territory, because then you're asking for trouble. They're going to come and find you. And so that's where the really big problem comes in for young males in particular, is finding that space that can be seen as a little bit more neutral. So you'll often find young males will move between territories until they can find one that they can hold, because they'll be avoiding the males and the other prides that they're not used to make sure that they survive. It's also what young males, even if they're from different prides, if they meet up outside of their prides, once they've left, they'll often form a coalition, just like the Torchwood males with the Birmingham young male at the moment, forming a coalition from lions from completely different prides to try and help with their survival, matching up against all these other lions in all these territories. Alright, so while I watch these very sleepy lions, let's have a look at the new penguin show that is coming very soon to WildEarth. I'm very excited about it. So you can see the lions have not moved very much, except for the one male that was in the sun. That very large sub-adult has moved to a different patch of sun. I'm still quite shocked about this. In my mind, I would have gone to the shade, but he clearly needs a bit more vitamin D today. And so he's soaking up the sun. You can actually see his mane is already starting to go dark, which is very unusual for a lion of this age to already have color coming into the bottom of his mane. You know, it's absolutely spectacular. But it makes sense if you look at the fact that dark mane is so striking, with the dark colors in his mane, with how far it extends. It makes sense that this young male would look very similar even at a young age. I just found it absolutely incredible how much darker he is than the other sub-adult males I've seen recently. Seems like he's found a spot that the flies aren't bothering him too much, which I'm sure is a relief to him. Now he can just focus on that heavy panting. You can actually see the pink of his tongue as he's panting with his mouth open. I spoke too soon, there's a fly. There you can just see the pink of his tongue coming into the sunlight as he's panting, trying to get as much air over his tongue as possible. Actually, in that light you can see the tip of his mohawk is also starting to go quite black. Would be very interesting to see the dynamics now with all of the drama happening with the Mbali male pushing at the dark maned male, trying to get dark mane out. Very interesting to see the upcoming dynamics with especially these young sub-adult males. They would be very threatened by the Mbali male. Isn't it beautiful to just watch him in that golden light? There's clearly no escaping the flies for him. As much as he's trying to rest, you can see now he's closed his eyes. Every now and then he's checking, he's opening those eyes, but he keeps having to close them and try and rest, but he can't at this stage put his head down because he keeps having to pick it up to chase the flies. So I think he's decided it's more energy efficient to keep his head up, and in that case he's already ready to chase away flies. Going to serve other purposes as well, but if it were me, I would definitely not get comfortable with my head all the way down, just to have to lift it back up again and chase those flies away. You can actually still see some streaks of red in his mane as well, so he's had a good meal and definitely hasn't had a chance to clean yet. So that's 100% what flies will be attracted to, and probably why they're bothering him so much. So I'd love to see what he does the rest of the afternoon. I think he is going to move fairly soon and join the rest of the pride in the shade.
My name is Nomfundo Ndlovu and I'm the Senior Project Manager for the Western Schools and Youth Unit. I'm a qualified horticulturalist. I'm particularly passionate about supporting schools towards working through their sustainability journey and towards food sovereignty through our food gardening projects. A typical day in my work involves me overseeing our national projects and creating an enabling environment for schools to thrive and succeed in working towards self-reliance and sustainability, and really ensuring that no school gets left behind.
The scrap here collected a dry grass, put it next to the water hole as the hippo walks down during the warm of the day to drink the water. When the hippo arrives, he saw quite a very nice grass, an area not to resist to rest. And when the hippo went down to drink the water, and when he finished the water, he just lied down on the grass. And then, that was the opportunity of the scrappy. You know what? Today is my day to pay the revenge.
Well, we have made it down to the area around the Timavati River and found ourselves an elephant. It has very slowly turned around and been feeding on that bush for the last little while, but very relaxed and content with life at the moment, enjoying some nice green leaves, it looks like. Just by the way it was walking towards us when we first saw it, I think it may have come up. The riverbank is just there. You can see how it's a little bit thicker where that elephant is, and that is where, there we go, it's quite open here, and then it gets quite thick with a nice big jackberry in the background, and that's the riverbed just beyond the elephant. So I think it may have been there earlier to drink some water, and now it's come up and started to feed here on the banks. Oh, there it's turning its head. You can just see the tusks now. Also sheltering itself there. The wind is coming from the left-hand side of the elephant towards, and that's where it's sort of positioned itself nicely in the shade. And from there, where it is, probably can hardly feel any wind on it with the thick bush protecting it, sheltering it. Is starting to move further and further into that bush now. What I can do is reverse a little bit and see if we can get a better view, but I think it may just decide to stay well hidden this afternoon. So I think we're going to get a better view from here. Just bear with me for another moment or two. There we go. We're going to be able to see a little bit more of this elephant now. Its head's still quite far into the bush, but at least we can see more of its body. Candice, you're asking if elephant cows and bulls have the same life expectancy. Now, as far as I know, they do. It's tricky to say. I think they can live to the same age naturally. So one isn't inclined to live longer than that if there was no other external factors that they had to deal with out here in the bush. But generally, because of the lifestyle of bull elephants and the risk that they have to run with regards to possibly ending up in a physical confrontation with another bull elephant, their lives can be, well, they can be killed at a younger age. Whereas with the elephant cows and the herds that they live in, it's quite a family group that's very protective and very close knitted together, and so their threats as a herd are possibly less because they don't have to come into physical conflict with another same elephant. That's not to say they don't, but it's just more likely seen in the elephant bulls. You just see that elephant gave a big flip of the ears. Also just using that to help cool himself down. Every now and again that tail, you can see that tail flicks from side to side, just chasing away any flies that may be bothering it. An elephant really has no rush to be anywhere most of the time. They truly look like they're enjoying themselves. I didn't catch that name. It sounded like frog something, so apologies for that. But your question is about insects that can penetrate an elephant's skin. Well, yes, they are, because if you think about it, elephants do get ticks, and ticks are parasites which suck the blood from their host. And because elephants get ticks, that means that they can actually get to the blood vessels that are in the skin. So yes, there are definitely insects that can get through an elephant's skin, and often where you find them is in the thinner, softer areas, like underneath the legs, between sort of almost, if you want to call it, an armpit, and then towards the back of the legs, under the neck as well, between the front legs, on the females around the mammary glands, where it's sort of softer tissue that's a little bit thinner, and that's where the ticks will sit and actually be able to penetrate the skin. You can just see that elephant's turned its head, and we can see the tusks now and the way it's using its trunk to feed. I'm not sure if you can hear, but there's also an orange-breasted bushrat calling in the background. Nice to hear them calling again. Oh, looks like it's wanting to move. Nope, it's staying put. Well, I think we are going to leave this elephant and carry on the road that runs along the river and see what else there is to find this afternoon.
Right, so we've got a tree, a beautiful tree, and it has something growing on it over there, okay? That is what looks like a tamboti with a woolly caper bush growing on top of it. And a woolly caper bush is somehow this tree, not really directly, it's more of an indirect parasitism. It is growing up on top of this tamboti in order to get to the sunlight, and then once it's collecting the sunlight, it's actually smothering that tamboti. It's no longer allowing that tamboti tree underneath it to get much of that sunlight anymore. And over time, as the woolly caper bush gets larger, the tamboti tree gets less and less sunlight, and eventually it will die. The woolly caper bush will then end up crushing the tamboti into the ground. Oh, there's a squirrel going down the back. Oh, just missed it. There's a squirrel that lives in that beautiful canopy there. So it's terrible, obviously, the tamboti will die eventually, but the woolly caper bush is creating a beautiful habitat that will last a long time, hopefully. Well, a very long time. As long as this tamboti stays alive, standing. And when it falls down, yeah, the caper bush might survive. But it might die, but it probably will survive. It just won't be as thriving anymore. But in any case, it's a very cool thing to see.
On up the road that runs along the river. And what we're going to do from here is head to a crossing and actually make our way to the other side. See if there's anything we can find.
Welcome back to some lazy Talamati lions and lionesses. To continue the discussion that Amy was having earlier about different ages or lifespans of males versus female elephants, bringing it over to the lions. This is actually one of the animals which will have a difference between male and female in terms of their lifespan, and that's because with an elephant, the main cause of death is starvation when they get old. With lions, it's actually the lifestyle that they lead being so different from males to females. So the average is anywhere to around 15 years old if you're combining male and female. Females in particular will live longer in lions. A maximum of maybe, if you're pushing it, 18 or so in the wild. But the females will definitely live longer than males. So the average for females, I would say, is around 14 to 15 years old. And that's because their life is mostly in the pride. It's having cubs, it's moving around in their territory. And they will adapt to whichever male comes in if they need to. As opposed to male lions, where the average is actually a lot lower. It's a third lower in males than females on average. Males would get to maximum maybe 10 years old if you're pushing it, maybe 12. And that's because the males are fiercely territorial. So their life is pretty much with the pride until they're 2.5 years old. Then they're nomadic, fully nomadic until about 5 years old when they can start coming into dominance. And in that nomadic time, they're constantly bumping into other lions and trying to avoid dominant males. From 5 years old, they start reaching their maturity where they can actually start taking over a pride. And that will only last until they're about 8-9 years old. And then what will happen is they might get overthrown by another new dominant male. And so with those interactions happening, with defending the territory, with defending the females and the cubs, with fighting for dominance just to get in and then being fought for dominance again when they do get overthrown, what happens is there's a lot of very severe injuries that can happen. And so that would lead to a male lion having a much shorter life. It's also quite common that when a male does survive an overthrow of dominance and the fights that go with it, he will then be nomadic again, but in his old age, it'll be much more difficult for him with any injuries from the fighting on his own, much heavier than the females, much more obvious with a mane that stands out. It'll be much more difficult for him to keep himself alive with hunting as well. So the lifespan will be much shorter on a male lion than it will on a female lion, just because of the very different lifestyle that they lead to elephants. It's a very interesting discussion because it will differ from animal to animal. The lifespans differ. Male to female will differ in most. So the young male is still having a lot of issues with flies at the moment. He's kind of started moving off to the shade a little bit, but he is still really struggling. I don't know if he's maybe got a wound close to his tail, the base of his tail, or if maybe, there might even be something like a tick stuck somewhere that's just very uncomfortable. And so he's really focusing a lot today on grooming his back legs and around his tail, and you can see he gets very upset. I haven't seen an obvious wound that I can kind of point out. Vicky, a lion's mane will only really be fully grown when he reaches sexual maturity, and that's anywhere from 5 years and onwards usually. It'll obviously still keep getting bigger and darker as he gets older, but a full mane is considered at the right age is around 5 years. That would be the full mane that goes all the way around his head and starts going kind of down towards his chest. Anything younger than that is still considered a partial mane. You'll start seeing the mane anywhere from around 8 months. There's a tiny little mohawk that pops up between a lion's ears. And you can see slightly longer hairs around the beard. And then it just gets consistently bigger and reaches its full volume, I want to say, at 5 or so years old when they reach sexual maturity. Very interesting though, I've seen some lions that have almost no mane, even though they are adult. And that could be related to genes, it could be related to the environment that they're in, could be related to testosterone levels as well. That can be quite a big one. So for example, if a lion I saw a lion who had one testicle that wasn't descended properly, so it stayed in his abdomen instead of coming out, as you would normally see the testicles hanging out. And he had a hormonal imbalance. He didn't have enough testosterone in his system. And so because of that, his mane didn't ever really grow properly. But he, on average, grew a lot bigger than the other male lions because he had less energy going towards normal testosterone function and more energy just growing towards actual growing in his body. Very interesting story. I'm glad to see this male has finally started relaxing to the point where he looks like he's actually getting some sleep instead of just fighting the flies. He really hasn't managed to settle down for long in any position yet, but he definitely looks overly comfortable now. In a position like this, it certainly looks like a very lazy, lush life when you're a lion. Definitely not the case on a day-to-day basis and in the overall scheme of things. But when they're lying like this, you can almost believe that it looks like a very relaxed life for a lion. Right, so while my lions continue snoozing and snoozing away, let's go find out how Amy's bumble is going.
We are still heading along the road that runs parallel to the Timbavati River. And still quite quiet, but far more pleasant out weather-wise. It's cooling down nicely. Also, this road in particular is full of big trees, so it's nice and shady as well. But I'm still holding out some hope to find buffalo today. I was thinking maybe there might be one or two old bulls that are hanging around in the denser vegetation here by the river, so we still looking out for that. It's getting closer and closer to summertime here in South Africa, and it means that the days are getting a bit longer. On the branches. So there are a few more minutes in the day where the sun is shining, which is nice. We're going to carry on. We're coming up to one of the river crossings, and I think we may take a little bit of a river cruise this Monday afternoon.
It's day one of the annual South African Guide of the Year competition, and our first foot into this competition this morning is all about tracks and signs.
We're going to call you in one at a time. Just look at it, the information will be there.
Our 5 guides have been tasked by the judges at figuring out who is what is who, and where they go in the bush.
Either Franklin or guinea fowl, but because of the volume of other deposits in the area, we went with guinea fowl.
Detailing the surrounding that you need to look out for tracks. The details is very important.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river, it's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that! How beautiful, look at that! One crossing, 2 to go.
Delivering 6 hours of HD wildlife content live every day is no small feat. It's a massive team effort, and we all rely on one another. Cam ops have a bit of work to do in the morning, up nice and early, get all the checks out of the way, and make sure we're ready to go live. Helping others fall in love with nature brings meaning to what I do. It's also a lot of fun.
So one of our lionesses is having a dream, it seems. She keeps kicking the other lioness in her sleep, as though she's chasing something, and it's the lioness on the right that's dreaming. I'm hoping she does it again, just so you can see what it looks like. Nazarene, that's a really good question. So a male lion can eat a lot of meat in one sitting. The average, well, a male lion would probably weigh around 250 kilograms. And if I'm not mistaken, the average is that he can eat much more than 10% of his body weight in a sitting, so more than 25 kilograms. I would actually hedge it more at about 35 kilograms. They can eat a lot of meat in one sitting, and that's why they end up with those massive bellies, and that would be kind of throughout the day combined. But it is a lot of meat. If you had to lay that much meat out from your freezer or your fridge at home, it's a massive amount of meat. It's actually quite unbelievable to think. Actually makes you wonder where on earth they put all of it, but it does kind of make you realize why they end up being so lazy for so many days. If I'm not mistaken, one of the highest amounts of red meat that a lion ate in a day was about 40 kilograms, but the average will be less. It'll be closer to probably 35-ish. And then you can really see the massive bellies on those males. These certainly don't look like they've eaten that much. They've definitely got food in their bellies, but not to the point where they look uncomfortable. I actually can't even imagine seeing that much food in one place. It would be very, very hard to stomach. When you're looking at an amount like that as well, it also makes you realize why the rest of the pride sometimes has to hunt more regularly than the males, because the males are the first to feed at a carcass. And if they're eating that much meat off of a carcass, and everybody else has to fight to get some at the end, you can imagine that there might not be very much left unless it is something large like a buffalo or even a giraffe. For a big pride of lions, even something like a zebra won't go as far. And so you can imagine why the lionesses might look thinner than the male lions, and why they might have to hunt more regularly as well. I've seen many a lion pride on a kill where the poor cubs are trying to get in to get some meat, and there's just no gaps for them in between the big males. Although I have seen a good few very brave cubs trying to get in between big males. And then the whole pride comes in to try and feed, and these little cubs are just in the middle of this kind of aggressive, no longer friendly looking lions on a feast. Alright, so I think I'm actually going to leave these very sleepy lions. They don't look like they're going to move anytime soon, other than 5 meters or so at a time. So I'm going to send you over to Amy, who's actually gone down to the riverbed.
Well, we have made it down into the Timbavati riverbed, going for a nice afternoon river cruise here. My self-steering cruiser, and it looks like we have found an elephant. I'm just going to go forward slightly and we can have a look. Oh, I'll just get the stick out of the way. There's always a stick in the way, I feel like, out here. I think Chad agrees with me. The banks of the riverbed are definitely a favorite spot for elephants. You can just see how this one is enjoying feeding on some grass.
Daniel, come in.
Do you see its ears? Do you see how they are flapping forward and back? Just gently. It's quite sheltered down here compared to other parts of the reserve we've driven this afternoon that it's actually quite windy. And so this elephant is moving its ears like that to cool itself down. One of the incredible adaptations that elephants have for such a huge animal. And I mean, it's not even summer yet. It's still going to get a lot hotter than this. And a way to keep them cool. Unlike us, they don't have sweat glands, which helps cool down our bodies. They need to find a different way to be able to regulate their temperature. And that's what those ears are for. Kologelo, you want to know if an elephant can survive a day without feeding. I don't know, to be honest, because I don't think I've ever seen an elephant go a day without feeding. I think just based on their size and the amount of energy or food, nutrition that they need in order to keep that big body going, they have to feed every day. I would imagine that perhaps one day, if you took food away from them completely, they would be able to survive. But here on Ngala and in this area where there's so much grass and food available, there's really no need for them to go a day without any food. But actually thinking about it now, if you imagine elephants that can live in the desert, like in Namibia, and have to travel very far distances from water source to water source, they may have to go a few days without food, and I think they can survive that now, just thinking about it. But if they could choose, they would definitely feed every single day for most of the day. But just to finish off my thoughts about the ears there, and how that temperature regulation actually works is that in that ear, compared to the rest of the elephant's body, it's very thin. You can see just the reason that they flap like that, and even the end of that ear is sort of waving about. And that's how thin those ears are. And within those ears, there's a whole network of veins and capillaries and blood vessels that are all linked together. And as the blood pumps through the whole of the elephant's body, comes through the ears and gets nice and cool before going straight into the brain of the elephant. And so if it can keep its brain cool, it can still function in very hot temperatures. Oh, but have a look at what it's doing now with the grass in its mouth. Just flicked it, got rid of that dust and placed it there, and slowly disappeared. But I think this elephant is now moving along a game path here and may start to feed again at another patch, otherwise it may just head up on that game path up the river bank. Forest monarch, you want to know if I've ever found elephant, I believe molars, in the bush, so their teeth. Personally, no, I haven't, even when I've been walking, haven't picked up on any elephant teeth. However, I have seen them that have been found by other guides, and they are quite incredible the way that they are shaped, and it makes a lot more sense when you do see one how elephants chew the food that they put into their mouths and are able to, we often see them with large branches in their mouth and rolling them back and forth to peel off that bark where the nutrition lies and sort of throw away the dead heartwood that they don't eat. And those molars, oh, we're coming back down into the river. Oh, look at that little jog down, now spraying some sand there onto it. Oh, wow. Let's just take in this scene for a moment as this elephant crosses the river. Oh, well, that was just magical. It's now decided that the grass is in fact greener on the other side of the riverbed. And also deciding to make a poo at the same time. Yes, indeed. I think that was Susia. Things are getting greener, slowly but surely. We are expecting some rains to come in the next month or so. And once that happens, things will get a lot greener all over the reserve. We're fortunate to have the riverbed here where the vegetation does tend to stay a lot greener throughout the year rather than just in the summer. but the grass is still quite brown. But it must have some nutrition still in it. The elephants are still eating the grass. But I can't wait to have that green, lush vegetation back that we see in the summer, and everything just looks so healthy and beautiful. Alright, well, it looks like this elephant is now deciding to go up the bank on the other side of the river. And it's probably, for the rest of the evening, going to slowly make its way up towards a different area to continue feeding this evening. And what we're going to do is just carry on driving along the riverbed this evening. But that's okay, because it is just so lovely to be out this afternoon. Taking a nice slow drive along, and I'm sure we're going to catch the sunset as well in a few minutes' time, a little while later, which is going to be stunning. Carry on cruising down the river, and let's just enjoy the view as we go. One of the great privileges we have as being guides on Ngala is being able to drive along this dry riverbed. So I try and never take it for granted and always appreciate the opportunity we have here, because it is rather magnificent.
Welcome back to my own little bumble after leaving the lazy lions. So I have found myself some wildebeest while I was coming up to check Sandy Patch, and this is where Tristan found tortoise pan earlier on today. So I thought I'd give it a crack, come up here and see if there's anything around. And there's quite a beautiful herd of wildebeest feeding before the light fades. You can see the females are already quite heavily pregnant, which is wonderful to see. In fact, there isn't a female in this herd that doesn't look like that. And so this is quite a successful little group of wildebeest. It's called an implausibility of wildebeest. So as the crow flies, we're actually not very far from where the lions are currently. Probably about 700 meters or so, so really not far at all. But these wildebeest have nothing to worry about. The lions are very lazy. And the only time they'll really need to start worrying is actually after sunset. Because it is still quite warm, I feel like the lions won't move till a little bit later. So this is actually just getting to the type of light now where the blue wildebeest actually gets its name from. And that's because as the light is picking up with dawn and dropping with dusk, at certain angles they get this gunmetal grey mixed with a metallic blue sheen about their coat. You can almost see it on that one that's on the road now. A little bit of it looks like a greyish blue colour, and that's where the name comes from. Most of the day they just look brown, silver and black. But as the light's changing is when it really comes alive. It's definitely one of the stranger looking animals here in the bush. You can see very strong shoulders and neck and quite a sloped back, very similar to a hyena. And that's actually specially designed for a very similar reason to hyenas. They want to be able to move long distances and not be able to tire, especially when they're running. So they would run and get into like a gallop. And the structure of the body with the shorter back legs and the longer front legs means that the gallop becomes very easy on the body. And they can maintain it for quite a long amount of time. And that comes in handy with things like the migration for the wildebeest, moving long distances. And for hyenas, covering larger distances to find food. Also to keep up with other predators. It also means that wildebeest in particular have a very large rib cage. And it doesn't look that different now because they are so pregnant, but when they're not pregnant, you'll see the rib cage is quite extended, or distended, I should say. And that's because if you're going to keep running, you've got to have strong lungs and a very strong heart to keep your body going. So as strange as they might look, they're actually perfectly designed to survive, especially in these conditions. I actually can't wait to see my first little impala lambs and wildebeest calves. Very good road sense for that wildebeest. Right, so it's actually crossing over to join the rest of the herd. The rest of the herd's already kind of moving off more towards the thicket, maybe to get out of the wind a little bit. And then later on tonight, if the wind drops, they'll come out into the open area of Sandy Patch and sleep here. And they'll probably sleep in quite a tight-knit group tonight, considering. So you can see there is actually one little yearling there. Unfortunately, it's not the best view with the guarri tree, but that's all right. Just in front of the wildebeest, that's pretty much a dead center right now. Just to the left of it, you can see the yearling. And this is one of the calves that was born last year. And it's just starting to kind of change color now. You can still see a lot of brown on the side of the body. And I'm hoping it'll show its horns just now. But the horns are just kind of starting to bend on the edges from straight. But it seems to be the only one of that age in the whole group. Let me actually see if I can reposition for you a little bit, just so that you have a nice clear view of all of them. Particularly in that light, they are beautiful as the golden light is kind of hitting. It's actually quite a cloud bank building up. So I think the sun is going to set a lot earlier than we anticipated today. Let's have a look. I'm making them for work today. There we go. Ah, there's two yearlings. The one was just hiding in the middle. Please excuse Wendy, she's about to roll a little bit. It's actually quite lovely to just watch them go about their last bit of afternoon feeding before the light fades. Alright, so from one big grey animal to another, I'm going to let these wildebeest carry on with their feeding and send you over to Amy, who's got some big elephants in the riverbed.
Well, it seems to be elephants in the riverbed as the theme for our afternoon. We have found another two here. One has moved off though, up on the opposite side of the bank, and we are just enjoying this elephant bull drinking here from a hole he's dug in the river. But let's just take a moment to watch and listen and see if we can pick up on the sounds and the moment that this elephant is enjoying out here in the bush this afternoon. Just watch how that trunk muscle, those muscles just expanded and that trunk dropped low down. And as he's going to lift up to drink, just watch how that trunk gets shorter and shorter until eventually he places the tip of it, oh, there we go, into his mouth. He's going to lift it up to put the water in. Look at that. Just taking his time. No rush. Oh, look at his back foot just stretching out there. Now it's run out of clean water, it looks like, and he's just tossing some of the water with the sand to the side. I think we may stay with this elephant for a little while longer while he's enjoying his evening drink.
I have a degree in environmental planning and development. My passion is outdoor classrooms. We are not only grooming the environmentalists of tomorrow, but tomorrow's leaders as well. My long-term goal is for the people of South Africa to learn how to live sustainably, to be able to look after themselves and the environment. So I hope that through environmental education, we are able to get that message to the future generation of South Africa so that they start now and can continue that good practice in the future. Environmental education is critical so that people can live sustainably in the future. That is my long-term goal.
I think sometimes you need just to listen. So it's a kind of taking out all that other spirit and bring back wilderness and healthy. Bushwalk and trek and sign. I'm sure I'm good at that. I spend most of my time on the ground since I was a young boy, so I think I'm good with that. Actually, I'm not much nervous of any category. Just take it as it is. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on what the judges are looking at. So chances are 50-50 on my side. I'm not... Obviously, when you go for a competition, you say you win.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... Oh. That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth.
So we've definitely got quite the magnificent purple and pink sunset here at Djuma. And the wind has finally dropped, so you can see there's hardly any movement in those trees. But just have a look at those colors. Let's take it in for a minute and just appreciate the beauty of an African sunset. You can see it's not going to be very long before the sun disappears completely, a lot earlier than expected because of that big dark cloud bank just below the sun. It's amazing, in the last 10 minutes there's been a massive change in temperature. It's all of a sudden back down to, I would say, low 20s, if that. And it's like all of a sudden every animal is starting to relax a little bit and start to become a bit more active. Even the small things like steenbok are moving around a little bit more, just taking a bit of relief in the cool weather. Margie, absolutely stunning colors in nature, and it's something that is so hard to describe, and no picture will ever fully capture how many different colors you can see in a sunset. So African sunsets is actually where my color scheme came from growing up. My favorite color was the kind of lilac that you see just as the sun is setting across the sky. And second favorite is that burnt orange red that you would see as the sun is coming up in the mornings. And it's just always been such a homely feeling for me, watching a sunrise and a sunset. And I'm definitely going to take in as much of this as I can, because we're actually due to have some rain tomorrow. So I don't know if we're even going to see the sunrise or the sunset tomorrow. Alright, so while I soak this in on this side, let me send you over to Amy, who's also catching the last few rays of the sunset.
Well, we have left that elephant bull, now made its way up onto the bank to feed, and come around the corner. I'm just catching the very last of the sunset this evening. Let's just sit and enjoy as the sun descends and melts away into the horizon. So peaceful out here. Quiet, just taking in all the sounds. And while we enjoy the very last of the sunset and watch this little Natal's profile make its way across the riverbed, let's have a look at a prize you can win at Eco Training Pridelands.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an Eco Training Ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Absolutely incredible opportunity to have an adventure of a lifetime. And while all of that sinks in, I am sitting with a beautiful hooded vulture right up on the top of a dead tree. And I think this vulture has actually been following the lions. See how sharp its beak is from this angle. Little hook at the end. Ooh. Going into the sunset. So it's actually flying very close to the lions. And that's probably the intention, land on a tree. There you go, closer to the lions. So where it's landed just below is where the lions were earlier. I believe they are still sleeping there. And so I think this hooded vulture, with it getting a bit cooler, is probably getting closer to make sure of what exactly the lions are doing. Because if they start moving, this hooded vulture is going to want to start moving with them. Follow them around for scraps of meat or even some of their scat. Quite a difficult view at the moment. Let me see if I can reposition that for you. Try and get a little bit closer and find a gap. So hooded vultures have always been very, very fascinating. They are vulnerable in South Africa, so we know that they are at risk of extinction. And they're usually found alone. They're the first ones to pop up at a lion sighting or any carcass. You'll find that the hooded vulture is the first vulture that will arrive. There's a tiny gap. Let's see if we can get it. Okay. Let's hope that that works. So it's actually quite far away. We're having to zoom in quite a lot. But you can see it's got this habit of moving from one dead tree to another, right at the tops. And this is something that all vultures share in common because of that massive wingspan. You can imagine, a hooded vulture has a wingspan of about 1.7 meters, so about my height, a little bit smaller than me. And so to try and land in a tree that's filled with leaves and all sorts of other things is near impossible to do elegantly and without hurting yourself if you've got wings that long. It's also part of the reason why they will be very careful before that vulture comes down from the tree to where the lions are or have been. It will make very sure that there are no predators close by, or that if there are, there's enough open space to land and take off easily without any obstruction along the way. I've seen many a vulture crash land, trying to land in a tree with too many leaves and dropping to the floor. And I've seen many a vulture get chased and nearly not make it off the ground with hyenas or wild dogs, which are a lot faster than the lions. And there it goes again, looking for the next dead tree. Straight out of the frame. Right, so it's definitely there, not so elegant landing. Definitely found another dead tree to land in. So I think I'm actually going to leave this vulture as it follows and hops around the lines. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to head slowly towards the area that the wild dogs were in and just see if there's been any changes as the sun has set.
Well, we are continuing down the riverbed this afternoon, well, the evening now really. And oh, it is lovely. I can't tell you how beautiful of an evening it is. We're getting closer and closer to those beautiful summer evenings that it's warm and still light outside, and I'm looking forward to that time, and this is just a little taste of what's to come. But we are actually gonna make our way out of the river soon. It is getting a bit darker, and I want to drive a road that runs along the riverbed on the opposite side. So just up ahead, we're gonna make our way out of the river at a crossing called Rue Castle's Crossing, and then drive around and maybe head to some clearings. I always like to head to the clearings after dark, well, along the river and then into the clearings, just to get a nice mix of vegetation habitat types, so we give ourselves the best chance at possibly spotting a few spots this evening, whether it be a leopard or maybe even a serval. That would be a treat. Be keeping our eyes peeled, myself and Khat, checking all the trees, making sure that we don't miss anything.
Alright, so I'm a very, very, very happy human right now. I have got the pack of wild dogs moving along the power lines with Swazi bringing up the rear. Alright, let's stop there so you can have a nice clear view of them without the vehicle bumping. I love the way that they run with their ears back, just bouncing along. Definitely does not want to get left behind, that hyena. And let's go off on another adventure. The Madach are mobile east along power lines east of Impala Road. It's amazing to me how closely the hyena is actually following the wild dogs. At some points it's in the middle of the pack. It is very strange for a hyena to be keeping up so closely with the pack. I don't know if the hyena is just used to this pack or not, but at some points there the hyena was actually in the middle of the pack and there were some wild dogs behind it, and it took quite a while for the wild dogs to decide to discipline the hyena and move it off to the side. It is normal for a hyena to follow after the pack, but I've never seen a hyena in the pack like that one was. Alright, time to keep up again. So this kind of driving after wild dogs is my favorite thing. You never know where they're going to go. It's lots of quick turns, lots of thinking on your feet, or for me, I guess, in the driver's seat. Just to try and keep up with them. Oh, and I can smell them. I am probably the happiest. It's amazing. So I am probably the happiest I have been in months, just because I'm following some cute little wild dogs running along the road. Cute by nature and one of the most incredible killers. Unreal. Disciplining the hyena again. So we have got some game viewers around us. We have got some game viewers around us that have got guests with them. So if you do hear some commotion, it's just everybody trying to get a view of the wild dogs. And rolling in it. And off they run again. Alright, so run again. Alright, so I'm going to have to try and keep up with them. I love it when they start running. They just keep going, and then all of a sudden, if they start, that's incredible to watch. Right, so it is quite dusty at the moment. Apologies for that. Right, I'll have to catch up with them and give you a little bit of a better view just now once they've settled down a bit. Or once they've gotten to a more open area where it's a bit easier to follow. Right, so I think what I am actually going to do is move around to the other side so we can have them running towards us just now. I'm going to leave them kind of running off down the road there, just because there's a little bit of activity going on at the moment with game viewers, with all the guests. So I'll let them run. I'm going to go around the other side and we'll have them coming towards us just now, which I think will be a lot of fun. Beautiful. Nothing quite like a wild dog chase. Luckily for me, when there are other vehicles around, it means that they can also keep up with them as we take turns to go around the front and have a look at them running towards us. They're actually heading up towards the open areas of quarantine, which is quite exciting because there's a lot of impala action there. Horse lover, yes, this is an amazing sighting. I'm very, very excited to see what happens. Oh, sorry, the bumps are making my voice go funny. I'm excited to see what happens when they get to quarantine, because that's where most of the impalas would be for the night. And if we'll get a view from here, we actually might. I'm going to reverse a little bit. I can see some impalas, and I want to just see if the wild dogs actually come up here. Yes, I can see some impalas running in the distance. There you go, there go the impalas. There's even more impalas coming. This is a big herd of impalas, and there go the wild dogs. So it is quite hard to to get them. There's a whole pack actually running after the impalas. You'll see them. There you go, in the distance. That's how fast they've gone already. And there's a whole pack still jetting. Have a look at how fast they're going. Unbelievable. Wow, that one was going extra fast. So you can imagine why it's hard to keep up with them when they're hunting. Right. Let me get a little closer now that they've run. They're actually going straight down towards an area called Treehouse Dam. So it would be very interesting to try and follow them through all those little dips and drainage lines, but we'll see what we can do. Really hoping that the wild dogs have hunted successfully. I didn't hear any sounds that sounded like it had, but the microphone can pick up better sounds than I can with my silly human ears. So I'm hoping that they have. They went straight over the back. Let's have a look. Incredible was it to see all those impalas just jetting across the open areas of quarantine, and then just blitzes of dogs running past. Unreal. Right. Seems like they may have been successful. Let's have a look. Alright, it is going to be a little bouncy again, folks. We're on the move again. No, definitely not successful because we're still on the move. We haven't stopped to feed. Right, they're actually heading back down now towards Vulture Dam, which is amazing. Might actually see them on the dam cam just now. For an old girl, Wendy is so reliable. Absolutely love her. Right, so it seems like they have started going into a drainage line, which is not great for us following her. Following them, I should say. Maybe what we can do is once we find them again, try and get a really nice shot. Back onto the main road, everybody. Very bumpy area. Very bumpy. Oh, guest vehicle, apologies. Yeah. Right, they're calling the vehicle instead of me. How funny is that? Right, I think he's trying to relocate. Yeah, he's actually going around to the other side. So it seems like they've already crossed. That's how fast they are. So I'm actually gonna kind of show you what I mean over here. So if you have a look in front of me, you can see this tree line. That tree line is a steep drainage line that comes down from Vulture Dam. And it seems like they've crossed that drainage line and already off on the other side. So what I'm doing while one vehicle goes around to check, I'm going to sit here and watch for movement and help give a direction of where they're going. Because they seem to have gone so quickly over the other side. Obviously, we can't just bolt into a riverbed and head over the other side. We want to be careful of things like that with drainage lines. Alright, so until I try and find them again, we'll see what else is happening out there, but let me get on that so I can give you another view.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, then we are excited to announce that there is another unique prize for you to win. Sign up to be an explorer before the 16th of October 2021, and you and a friend could be heading off to an eco-training ranger experience. This 2-night opportunity offers a living and learning adventure where you will combine seeing incredible nature with gaining knowledge on how animals live in the wild. You will approach dangerous game on foot, learn how to track, do some 4x4 driving, and have an exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team behind the scenes on the live show. After each action-packed day, you will relax around the campfire and listen to the nighttime choir of animal sounds before you drift off to sleep. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
And I turned to Shaw and I saw that she had this panicked look on her face. Either she was afraid that something had happened or she was afraid that she was going to miss out on something. But instead of her missing out on those lions, we drove up next to them and I switched off the car so that she could hear what was going on. Now, these lions had killed a kudu, and she could hear these 2 cubs, both 8 months old at the time, busy pushing and shoving each other out the way to get to the best parts of the meat. And the mom was lying just to the side in the shade. Now, I'd known that before losing her sight, Sean probably knew what a lion looked like. But I really wanted her to know what this lion looked like. So for the first time in my guiding career, I started to describe to someone what a lion looked like. And I found that, I started to notice things in that lion that I'd never seen before.
Oh, it's going to be in trouble now. Oh, this is unbelievable stuff. Here comes a hippo in too. Go, Impala. There's a hippo coming in. I can't believe what we're seeing here. This is what we normally see in East Africa. It's all over. Hippo leaping at the crocodile now. Everything's gone underwater.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Still a beautiful scene here as we watch the sunset. So we have also stopped to have a look at the moon this evening. Looks like it is a full moon, and it's also got this beautiful glow to it that you don't see every day. Quite special that there's still enough light in the sky that we're actually able to see the moon in color. I think it's important we take these moments to just appreciate the sunsets and the moon rises as our days go here in the bush. It's one of those things that you can't really find quite like it anywhere else, I think. You can watch them in other parts of the world for sure, but there's something very special about seeing them in the African bushveld. As it starts to get dark outside, so that moon is going to get brighter, become more prominent in the sky. There were some sounds of elephants as well that were passing through in the thicker bush just below the moon. And I can just hear some of the last bird calls before they also go and settle down for the evening and tuck themselves away somewhere nice and safe to sleep for the night. Before some of the nocturnal birds start to come out. Or maybe we'll keep our eyes open for an owl tonight. We haven't seen one of those yet with our drive so far. And I think from here we are going to slowly start making our way up this road that continues along the river, and then wind our way through some of the clearings that are coming up, and keep looking out, especially as we drive the road along the river, for Varro's eagle owl, which will be very special to see. And then a little bit later, we'll see maybe what else we can find of the creatures that come out at night. But for now, I'm going to send you over to Tessa, who's also enjoying this beautiful moon.
All right, welcome back everybody. My adrenaline levels are starting to drop a little bit after the chase. And I'm just so happy that I got to show you the wild dogs running with the hyena and then just jetting off after those impalas. They have moved so fast across that drainage line that I don't think we'll find them again. But now that it's getting dark, we're actually going to leave that area and just try and focus on some nocturnal things, just like Amy. And you can see we've got a stunning, pretty much full moon. It's just a sliver off of full at the moment, with a beautiful lilac-breasted roller sitting on the branch in front. Thank you, Pauline. Yes, it is a magical scene. This kind of dusk light is just wonderful, and to see the moon like that looking so bright and so orange and red is really something special tonight. It's definitely one of the best times of the day to be out, because this is when all the birds are starting to perch. They might be calling to advertise where they are for the night. This territory is taken, or this branch is taken. And it's a great opportunity to listen to everything coming alive, all the nocturnal species, all the insects, nightjars, everything like that starting to wake up for the evening. I think also good to just bring the heart rate back down after an exciting chase. Craig was very happy with that. Thank you so much for the compliment. It's definitely perfectly framed. Even that little nodule that's coming out of the tree just on the edge of the moon. Perfectly positioned. Almost looks like the moon is actually part of the tree, like it's coming out as a fresh bulb that's going to flower. I can hear a pearl-spotted owlet in the background. And a fiery-necked nightjar in the distance. Maybe if we're lucky, if the wild dogs kill something even a distance away, it's normally quite noisy. Maybe we might hear it. Although with the amount of distance they were covering so quickly, I mean, you could see it in that shot of them just jetting across. I don't know if they'll even be on the next property. Still, they might have gone right through. Quite incredible to see how the moon is moving. Well, and we're moving, I guess, slowly as well. The whole earth is moving. But just to see how it's slowly now starting to edge to the left-hand side of that tree. Very, very quickly. Oh, there goes the roller. Almost dead center now. Alright, so I'm definitely going to take in a few of these nighttime sounds and then see what the rest of the evening holds for me as I head towards Twin Dams.
We are continuing to drive and bumble around this evening. Haven't seen anything yet. Actually saw an nightjar in the road, it flew away. Just taking it nice and slow, making sure that we don't miss anything along the way. We've moved on from the road that runs along the river and are now just cutting in a little bit further south on Ngala. We'll sort of zigzag through this area, making sure we cover all the roads. And slowly make our way back in the direction of the lodge this evening.
Welcome back. So I'm on a little evening bumble, and it is probably the most pleasant temperature we've had at night since I've been here. I'm not wearing a jersey, it's not cold. It's really, really stunning out tonight. So I think I've got a lucky feeling. I think there's going to be some activity tonight, as if the wild dogs weren't already, you know, phenomenal enough. I am one very happy guide. So I'm actually just about to arrive at Twin Dams, which is pretty much on the southern side of Djuma, right on the boundary almost. And I just want to see if there's any activity at the dam at all. It has been a very hot day now that it's cooled off and the wind has died down. It's the perfect time for some of our nocturnal species to be coming down to drink. I'm actually really, really hoping to see an owl. A really good view of an owl would be the perfect end to my day. Definitely feels quite strange going slowly again after going fast after the wild dogs. Haven't done that in a good while. Yes, a last minute leopard would pretty much blow my mind, I think. Oh, I don't even know who I'd want to see. Maybe Kuchava. That would be really cool. Little last minute leopard sighting to end the day. That makes me excited all over again. Right, we might have to flick over to infrared pretty soon, but I am now on the dam wall. So let's have a look if there is anything here. A beautiful evening. It's actually really nice for a change to see the dam so still with not a single ripple. Can you hear the fiery-necked nightjars? A lot of different cricket species out as well. Water thickneys. Post-sider, so the most recent reports on Tlalamba are that she is actually up in Buffelshoek. I believe she has a carcass close to the airstrip there. And that's quite far on their southeastern boundary. I would love to see her again sometime soon though. She is such a beautiful leopard. I don't know if my mind is playing tricks on me or not, but I could have sworn I saw movement in the distance. But I think it's my mind. I think I'm really hoping to see a leopard now because of the last minute leopard idea. So I think I'm imagining things. I definitely would not put that past myself. beautiful and relaxing is it to be able to sit at a watering hole and just have all of the life come to the fore around you. All of the smaller nocturnal things. So there's quite a few insects out. You can see them catching the light in front of the camera. Blacksmith lapwing giving a call before bedtime. Just imagine the infrared light catching the glow of a leopard's eyes as it walks up from the other side of the dam. Right on the edge there. How wonderful would that be? It's going to be interesting to see as well with our weather turning tomorrow. It's supposed to be quite cold, down to about 20 degrees Celsius and raining. Be interesting to see how the predators will have moved from today to tomorrow in anticipation of that rain. A lot of the predators will be on the move tonight before it gets cold and rainy. You might find them covering larger distances than usual or than you expect. Find them in completely different areas tomorrow. So I'm actually going to start taking a little bit of a bumble back towards quarantine just to see if any life has returned back there after the wild dog chase. So I'll leave Twin Dams for now and just soak in a bit of the nocturnal life.
As WildEarth has shown, a guide is critical to your enjoyment when on safari. Safari Guide of the Year is an annual event which creates awareness for these men and women who dedicate their lives to tourism and wildlife. WildEarth fully supports this initiative that gives more credit to a profession that drives our economy and flies South African flags higher than most. In the lead up to our live award ceremony, where the Safari Guide of the Year 2021 will be crowned, we are inviting all our viewers to join us for a special fireside chat. Open to everyone, this unique event invites some of the top guides in the country to Djuma on the 26th of September, straight after the Sunset Safari.
Here at the Advanced Rifle Handling Challenge, which is actually lots of challenges in one to gauge the contestants' skills at different distances and different speeds. This is probably the challenge that the contestants are the most nervous about. So let's get them locked and loaded. The competitors are now doing the Hades Hall, where they have to run back and forth to a target, turn, take aim and shoot. And this simulates a chase in the real environment and gets the heart pumping and the blood pressure up. James gave us a demonstration and the skill involved in this exercise is remarkable.
Goodness, look at its wobbly legs. Oh, I don't believe it. I can't believe we've actually seen it. Oh my goodness. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Oh no. Oh, it's okay, little one. Okay.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
I was just wondering, maybe those of you who are watching can tell us what your highlight of the day was this afternoon from drive. It's always interesting to hear what different people who all watched the same thing this afternoon found to be their favorite part. Sometimes it can be the big things, but also sometimes it can be the smaller things. I know with the bushwalks and Mike on Pridelands, sometimes he can show some really interesting small things that sometimes are overlooked. That is very cool. I will have to go and have a look at that. Following wild dogs can be really something special. We are going to go into a little bit of a dip here, but hopefully that won't be a problem. All right, well, we are slowly heading in the direction of the lodge this evening, and you are going to head off to Tessa, who's doing the same.
All right, welcome back. So I am on a little bumble back towards the lodge and found a massive waterbuck that's walking down towards the riverbank. So I thought definitely worthwhile just watching him go. They are very big creatures and don't often get the credit that they deserve, I think. And he's disappearing into the thickets there. Have a look at the size of his horns. He is absolutely beautiful. Very thick neck, very strong animal. And he smelled something there that he wants to investigate. So I wonder if he's not smelling other waterbuck, considering we are quite close to Twin Dam still. I'm just north of the dams. He very well could be smelling other waterbuck. He could even be smelling a predator that he just wants to investigate, the smell of a hyena or a leopard. And sniffing the bushes like that makes me think it might be a leopard that's been scent marking, spraying up into the trees and rubbing against it. So you'll notice he's not actually feeding, he's just trying to gather information. His nose is moving very, very fast, so he's smelling. And occasionally he might take a taste of the leaves or something like that, not to actually eat them, but just to process the information a lot better. What a cool sighting, actually, of him analyzing all of those leaves. What an unusual way to end an evening, with him kind of just moving off after he's finished his analysis. But it's been absolutely incredible having you on board today. It's been so many exciting sightings, from the lions to the wild dogs to the elephants to all of the bumbles and the birds in between. And absolutely stunning, stunning sunsets today. We really hope that we get to see you tomorrow. Please join us for tomorrow morning's safari, where we can show you some more magic from the bush. And I think it's going to be absolutely incredible in terms of weather for predators. So I'm hoping that we have a very successful day tomorrow. Every day is a new adventure, and we loved having you today. So please, please, please join us in the morning. And I can't wait to see what we find together. I hope everyone has a lovely evening and really enjoyed themselves today. And the elephants are saying goodnight in the background. How perfect.